Over East Texas groundwater is headed to federal court. A Dallas businessman is now suing the Neches and Trinity Valley Groundwater Conservation District. KLTV7's JD Conti has more tonight on this latest move in the war over water.
Whether it comes from a lake or deep underground, Texas needs more of it. Dallas businessman Kyle Bass has plans to pump water from the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer, which runs through much of East Texas, to the Metroplex. He spoke on the plans at a meeting in Jacksonville last year. However, the project is on pause for now. In a 27-page federal lawsuit filed on Tuesday, two ranches tied to Bass sued the Neches and Trinity Valley Groundwater Conservation District. The 7 board members are named as well. Bass's attorneys claim the district violated their property rights. The suit says the district adopted a temporary drilling moratorium in May of this year. Bass believes he was unfairly targeted by the rule. The suit reads, the rule was, quote, specifically designed and timed to prevent plaintiffs, and effectively only plaintiffs, from pursuing the groundwater rights they had spent more than 2 years and substantial resources attempting to exercise through lawful channels. In an email statement, Bass told us, quote, we followed the rules, invested years and significant resources in the process, and expected only that we would be treated fairly. However, even at this early stage, the district has put up a targeted and indefinite roadblock that prevents us from accessing or even testing the groundwater beneath our own land. As a result, I had no choice but to file suit. We reached out to the groundwater district but did not hear back. The lawsuit is the latest battle to define East Texas water rights. As it stands now, Texas operates under the rule of capture. That means if the water's under your land, you can take it. Bass's attorneys acknowledge this in their suit. However, critics of the project have raised concerns for how large drilling projects could affect nearby neighbors who drink from the same source. Legislators have called for further research on how much water there is, and further action on the topic is expected next session. JD Conti, KLTV7 News.
And several East Texas counties and lawmakers are working to create a new groundwater conservation district in East Texas to protect their water from similar proposals.